It's time for us to check back in with the family history and stories of Opal Corn Myers. If you missed any of the previous readings, just look in the description below for a playlist. You can also find the link in the description below for my Etsy shop, and that's where you can buy this wonderful, wonderful book. September 1972 to October 1972, Marjorie Reeves. By the 1st of September, this was in 1972, I had found another place and paid my first month's rent. But since my garden wasn't all harvested yet, I'd asked my old landlord if we could stay there for 2 more weeks until I could get all my crops in. Part of what I had left to harvest was the corn I used to feed my hogs. That would save me from having to buy more feed. Everything worked out fine, and at the end of 2 weeks, I had everything from the house and barn moved. Then I got someone to help me bring my hogs over. We had one off the truck and in the pen, and the other one was coming down the ramp when this man came running up saying, "Wait a minute, wait a minute. Marjorie said to tell you not to let your hogs put 1 foot on her ground. She doesn't allow hogs on her place." Well, that was just a little more than I could handle. "What do you mean she doesn't allow hogs on her place? I never heard tell of anyone in the country not having hogs." I didn't know anything about this when I paid her my rent money. She didn't say a word to me or ask me what kind of animals I had or if I had hogs. You go back and tell her that there are already 4 hog feet on her ground, and there'll be 4 more just as soon as we can get them there. I've got my rent paid until the end of this month, and I'm going to put whatever I please on this place for the rest of this month. Then we'll be out of here, hogs and all. October 6, 1972 to May 22, 1976, Fords by the bridge. So there I was, hunting down a place to rent again. It was becoming a tradition for us. The more moves we made, the harder it got. I was so tired of moving around. You see, I had all this fine land up there with houses and barns and everything, but if I was going to teach, I had to be closer to the school. I couldn't live way back up in here, but my heart lived here. It always had, and it always will. This time, all I could find was a little old shack that had a wire fence all the way around it. It was way back in the woods over there by the creek, right before you get to that last bridge as you leave Old 15th. Now there's a nice brick home there. It was so small, and I knew I wouldn't be able to put 5 or 6 rooms of furniture in that little thing, but that was the only house I could find. I would just have to pack up a lot of my things and store them around in different places. The Newmans had told me that they had an empty basement that they had never used, and that I could store anything I wanted to and leave it there as long as I needed to. On the day I moved, I had 5 or 6 people helping me, and I mostly stood there directing people where to take each item. "Take this to the barn. Take that to Mr. Newman's. Take this to the Ford house. Take that to the hen house. Take this to the barn. Take that to the..." Just over and over, and they still got everything all mixed up. They were trying to unload it in the right places, but when it was all over, none of them could remember any better than I could where things went. Barry and Benja. One time when Barry and Benja were still fairly little, they got some tools and took all the nuts off the tires on Acorn's car. How they got them loose, I'll never know. I don't even think that I would have been able to do that. Then they just laid the wrenches down and went on to something else, leaving the car there with the tires looking like they were fine. Well, it might have looked like nothing was wrong with the car, but about the time Acorn got down to the mailbox, the tires fell off. He came a-hopping back to the house looking real strange, and I asked him, "What in the world's the matter?" Barry and Benja were standing there, just as innocent as could be. They were only about 4 and 5 years old. All the tires just fell off of my car. All the nuts are missing." Well, Barry and Benja took him right out there and showed him where the tools and nuts were. They knew exactly where they had left them. Acorn didn't get mad. He laughed it off. It was funny, too. To me, it sounded exactly like something I would have done when I was little. They tease about Benja doing so many mischievous things, but I guess he got it honest because I was always into trouble, just like that. They were all the time doing something funny. Benja still does. Benja would go around singing crazy things, not a song or nothing, just making up words. One time he was in a play and had to sing with another boy. They were supposed to sway back and forth in time to the music as they sang. Well, the longer they swayed, the more they exaggerated their sway until they got so carried away with it that they were doing more swaying and rhythm keeping than singing. They were really cutting up. The more the audience reacted, the more they performed until everyone was so tickled and laughing so hard they had tears in their eyes. Barry and Benja always thought a lot of me, Barry especially. People said he acted like he worshipped me, but they always accused me of petting Benja, and I guess I did. I always felt so sorry for him because his parents didn't call him and talk to him like they did Barry, and I thought he wasn't treated fair. I guess they couldn't stand his mischievous ways, but I liked his ways. They reminded me of my younger days. I'm glad I had those boys. They added so much to my life, even though it was a lot of work. Washing for them took the most time. They were both in diapers when I took them in. After I changed them, I would rinse their diapers out and soak them in a pail of water. Then every night I would wring them out and wash them and hang them outside. In bad weather, I had to fix up something around the stove for them to dry on. I didn't have to worry about having enough kindling saved up or think about building a fire every morning because we used coal. Every night before going to bed, I would put some coal in the stove and it would still be hot in the morning. That's the reason Acorn doesn't know anything about getting wood and building a wood fire now, because he never had to do it. When Benja got a little older, maybe 8 or 10, he made little go-karts out of just this and that, all kinds of scraps and parts and things. One of his favorite things to do was to take his go-kart up to the top of that steep hill behind the old McMahon place where we lived then and fly down towards the house as fast as he could. At the last minute, he would swerve off to the side of the house. He knew exactly what he was doing, but he scared everyone else near to death. Barry and a Messner boy decided one time that they were going to build a go-kart. They put a motor on a piece of wood and put wheels on it. They rode that thing all around here, having the best time with it. Then Barry decided he was going to build an airplane. When he finished putting it together, he took it up on that high bank where that swinging tree is and jumped off with it. He thought it was really going to fly, but he found out different. I miss the boys since they've grown up. I miss Benja worst of all, and people can't seem to understand that. One reason I do, Benja was always there for me. If something happened to my sewing machine, if a light bulb went out, Benja was right there to fix it. Barry didn't think too much about fooling with that kind of thing. Same thing was so with Acorn and the rest of them. They just don't care. Oh, they'll fix it all right, but they really don't care. Retirement. In 1973, the school district announced that teachers with a 4-year degree and a minimum of 30 years of teaching could retire and get $150 a month plus a cost of living raise every year. And of course, teachers with 40 years of experience would get much more. I'd already taught for 40 years, but some of those didn't count towards retirement because I was teaching for the government and not through my school district. I had a total of 37 years towards retiring, but I was still working on my degree. I wasn't quite sure how many more credits I needed before receiving it, but I thought it would be only 1 or 2 courses. So I figured if I taught 3 more years, I could easily finish everything I needed to get my full retirement. In order to start teaching in any of the one-room schools, I had only needed to complete 1 full year, and I had done that at Milligan College right after getting out of Highland. From there, I had just taken 2 or 3 courses here and a term or 2 there, like Carson Newman extension courses, whenever they had been available in Newport, courses at Johnson City, and a correspondence course from Chilliwack in Virginia. I'd been doing that for at least 30 years, taking courses that I was interested in or felt that I needed in order to be a better teacher. Since I was getting closer to retirement, I thought it would probably be a good idea to get all of my records together and take them into Newport and have someone there look at them. So I took them into the administration office of the school district. Here are all of my records. Now tell me what more is required to finish my degree. Degree, she said. You've not even started on a degree. I began stacking my credits and certificates in little stacks on the counter as I told her, "Well, I've had a year at Milligan College, and I've had all these courses at Johnson City, and these from Carson Newman. These are my correspondence courses from Chilliwack. I should only be a few courses short. Just look at my records," and I shoved them towards her. "I have looked at them. Nearly everything you have here is in religion. This is from a Baptist institution, and this one is from the Church of Christ." "What's the difference?" I didn't know that denomination or religion made any difference. "Well, it certainly does. We just can't count all these religion courses towards a teaching degree." So there I was with my 37 years of teaching for the school district, but not nearly enough credits to get me even close to a degree. They ended up offering me a retirement equal to the 30-year plan. Of course, in those 37 years, I was never paid as much as my friends who were degreed teachers. I was averaging $350 a month, and here they were offering me $150 to stay home. After I got to thinking about it, it really was pretty funny. I was one of the very few who could honestly say that I had too much religion. Yes, sir, being paid half of what I made as a teacher to stay home sounded like a good ideal to me. I really wanted to be home with Barry and Benja. I wanted to be sure they went to school and be able to help them with their homework and teach them when they came home. Ethel Louise, Desmer's youngest daughter, is a teacher here at Bridgeport. At least one of us in the family is keeping the school teaching tradition up. She has her master's in education, and I'm just so proud of her. We all are. Maybe one day you'll be a school teacher too, Lori. But no matter what, I want you to know you are loved. I have faith in you, and I just know you'll make all of us very proud. When I first started teaching in 1933, I made $50 a month. Then in 1949, I got a raise to $69 a month, and I had to pay my insurance, teacher's dues, and taxes out of that. I had just gotten up to $350 before I took early retirement. Moved back to the log cabin in 1976. We had been at the Ford house for over 3.5 years before we had to move again. Barry was just 2 months away from being 8 years old, and Benja was almost 6.5. Moving was wearing me out, and I missed being on my own land in my own community. I loved it up here more than any place I had ever been or could ever go. Since I wasn't teaching any longer, it seemed like I even missed this cove more than ever. While I was thinking about that, getting even more homesick for my land, it just hit me. There was absolutely no reason left why I couldn't move back home. I heard myself saying, "That's it, we're going home and I'm not ever moving again." It was May 22nd, 1976 when I moved back to the old McMahon place, my very own little log cabin in the cove that I loved. With my belongings scattered nearly all around the county, moving this time was going to be different. I had no idea where some of the boxes I had packed ended up, and my old trunk was missing too. I could remember one of the ladies helping me pack all of my good sheets and pillowcases, along with my bedspreads in that trunk. It was supposed to have been brought up here and stored in the barn. It was only a few years ago that I finally remembered that I had stored things in the Newman's basement. That's where I found my linens. It was amazing, after all that time in the basement, they had not mildewed or anything. I've still got all those sheets till yet. Of course now, they're just about falling apart. Otto and the Bean Story. I've never been more happy anywhere than I have been here on my land. Since the book Christie became so well known, I've had hundreds of people from all over the country come here to find the place where the mission once was. I love telling them about the area and the mission and how things used to be. We still live somewhat backwards from how most people in other places live, and I practice many of the old country ways with my food. It's funny how people react. One day I had 10 gallons of beans that I had sorted and snapped off the ends spread out on top of this big table. I was sitting there stringing those beans with a needle and thread just like I had done from the time I was a young girl helping Mama. Otto, a Hungarian, was there waiting on Acorn to get ready. He just kept watching me with this questioning look on his face while I worked away, sticking that needle through a bean and then pushing it down the string. I was getting so tickled because I knew he was wondering what in the world I was doing with all those beans. I didn't say anything about the beans. I just kept working away and watching his reaction out of the corner of my eye. We were talking about, just this and that, but he kept walking around the table glancing from me to the beans. Then he'd walk around again. "What are you doing with those beans?" he finally blurted out. "Oh, I'm just sewing them together." "What are you sewing those beans together for?" I just couldn't resist it. "So none of them will get lost, of course." Well, he just stopped dead in his tracks and looked at me real strange like. I had to laugh. "We sew them together in loops like this and then dry them." "Dry them? I've never heard of dried beans." "They're real good. People around these parts like them a whole lot." I guess there aren't many people who know about stringing beans anymore. I'm sure it would seem real strange to them to see someone sewing their vegetables. We'll stop right there. Oh, Opal, ever the humor, isn't she? She's got such a great humor, and she's always got to make a joke or laugh about something. I just love that, and even down to making leather breeches. That's what we would call those beans. We call them here in this area leather breeches if you dry them like that. A lot of people string them. Like Opal said, not as many people today making them. But some people string them, some people just lay them out. Of course, today you could use your dehydrator, but Miss Cindy, Matt's mother, told me her grandmother would lay them out on a screen, and then she'd take it in at night and put it back outside during the day. I have a video about leather breeches if you'd like to watch that. I talk more about it. But I love Opal's humor, how she knew the whole time Otto was watching her that he was wondering, and she was just enjoying every minute of it. So this part starts with her moving again. She keeps having to move, and she kind of explains it, but you'll remember that the reason she's living there and having to move from house to house to house is just because the roads are so bad that she couldn't drive every day between her home up there in the cove that she loves and near the mission back to Del Rio where she's teaching school. It was just too bad. She just couldn't do it. It just wasn't possible. So that's why she's having to live in all those different places. And the one that she had to leave when she went to the place that we read today, where Marjorie's, where she didn't want the hogs, she had to leave that other place because the lady got mad at her because she let Benja and Barry live with her. You remember that from last week. So she just had to keep moving and moving. And you know, I'm real fortunate in my life. I've never really moved very much. When I was growing up with Pap and Granny, you know, my mom and dad, we lived at one place over in Martins Creek, and that's where I was brought home to when I was brought home from the hospital. So we lived there till I was about 4 or 5 years old, and then we moved here to Wilson Holler, and that's where I lived the rest of my life, my growing up years. So that was a move I had nothing to do with. I was just little. I remember bits and pieces of the excitement. I remember the other house all empty and what it looked like and how it was big, felt big, and I could run around in it. And then I remember, of course, the excitement of a new house. And then when I met Matt, I lived out of town. I didn't live here, but it was more like I was just working there, and really all my stuff was still here. So I had I packed a lot of stuff, but I still had my room at Pap and Granny, so all my stuff was there. And then me and Matt moved into this house, and this is where we've been ever since. So I've not never moved a lot. Helping Corey and Austin move from their house they first had when they were first married over here to be near us, I saw that was a huge undertaking. They had not been married but about 2 years, but still it was just so much. They had so much stuff. So I feel sorry for Opal having to move, and every time she'd move, she'd kind of lose some of her stuff because she'd put it here and there, and like she was explaining, she wasn't really blaming it on the people because she couldn't even remember where it was supposed to be. But every time she would do that, she'd lose a little bit of it. I love the part her talking about Barry and Benja. She just loved them so much. You can just hear that love, and she says how they really enriched her life. You know, they really gave her life meaning, and yeah, it wore her out at that age taking care of young kids, but what a blessing they were to her, and that it really kept her going and kept her wanting to do for them, and just really was a blessing to her. You can just tell how much that she loved them. They sound like they were real characters. Her description here really reminds me of Matt, like them taking the lug nuts off the car, Elcon's car, and not telling him, and then he drove off. Those are the things that Matt did when he was little. If you watch all our videos, you've heard him tell some of the stories like that, and about how Papa Tony, his daddy, got so mad at him, and really just didn't know what to do with him because he done stuff like that all the time. He wanted to find out how things worked, and he wanted to do things like he's seen on TV. He wanted to act them out and all those things. So it's nice that Elcon, he could have got real mad, but then he's like, I guess he's like, what am I going to do? It's over now, and I can't believe those little rascals, that's probably what he thought, those little rascals actually got the nuts off. I can't even believe they done it. And then Opal finds out about retirement. So they make that announcement, and she's thinking, well, good, this will be great. I've about got my degree, and I've got my years in, and by the time I teach a few more years, I'll have those, and I'll have my degree, and all will be well. And then she goes to find out, and they tell her, you ain't even started on your degree. You don't have nothing. Just typical Opal there. I probably would have got real depressed and mad and upset, but she just kind of was like, what do you think about that? And then she said the more she thought about it, she started thinking it was pretty funny. I'm the only person I ever knew that had too much religion. I took too many religious classes. So she just looked at it like that, like, well, and then quickly decided, well, if they're going to pay me to stay home, and they're going to offer me this retirement, and I'm never going to be able to achieve that other retirement because I can't get the degree now, I might as well go home. And then when she really realized, I think at first she just thought, well, I'll just stay home and take care of the boys. But then, like she says, suddenly one day she's like, there's nothing keeping me here now. I'm not working. I could go home. So she decides to load them up and take them home. And then you can just hear that sense of place as she talks about it. That sense of place is really part of the Appalachian culture. Where you live, I can't even help but look around here where I grew up in this mountain holler. It really just becomes part of you somehow. The landscape, the sounds, the birds, the creek, the wind, whatever it is. And just the feeling, like the feeling of the place. It's a real thing, the sense of place. And I'm not saying people don't have it in other areas, whether you live in the desert, the plains, the prairies, wherever it's at the beach. You probably have that same sense of place, but it's really a strong thread in the culture of Appalachia that people become really, really attached to their place, to their home place. And so once she realized she could go back, that was just like wonderful. Now, she wasn't living that far away. Like I've had so many people in my life that I know personally, that I've heard say, they had to move off. Even that, we say off, like it don't really matter where you're at. You just moved off. You left here. That could be California, or it could be, Florida or wherever. It's just not here. So she didn't have to move far off. A lot of those people, they move off and they make their living, and some of them come back home. Some of them don't. They end up making their life, wherever they moved off to make their living. But she didn't have to go it wasn't that far, really, that she was gone. So the area she was in was still very similar as far as the culture and the foods and the way people thought about things, the religion, all those kind of things, the music, just everything. It would have been very, very similar. But she was just missing that place, her home place. I think about that. It would be like if I had to leave here and maybe go to, I don't even know if it would be as far as from Brasstown to Franklin. It might not have even been that far from where she was at. Maybe it was, though. So if you want to say Franklin, so it takes me about an hour to get to Franklin. Again, the landscape would look the same. There'd be a lot of people that sounded just like me. They'd be eating the same foods. They'd be enjoying the same music. But it wouldn't be home. It wouldn't be Wilson Holler. So, I just feel like I know my place here intimately, from down at Granny's to up here to even down through the holler, and places I don't go as much now, but I went as a child, and certainly up the creek and along the creek and on down the road, and I just feel like I intimately know those places, and somehow they're part of me. Sounds kind of strange, I know, but I believe Opal felt like that about her place, her cove. And a cove is really the same as a holler. It's about the same. In my mind, I think about a holler being a more narrow valley between mountain ridges, but some coves are pretty narrow too. It really depends on who's saying it. And then there's coves that are more expansive, and there's definitely some hollers that are big, more expansive than, say, Wilson Holler. So anyway, I believe Opal felt like that about her home, just like I do. And I couldn't really imagine. That'd be really sad if I had to go and I couldn't, like, I knew my house was still sitting here and everything was here, my greenhouse or whatever, like she had her barn, and I knew someday I was going to get back there, but I had to move, like an hour away or whatever, 30 minutes away, and I wasn't able to go back. I know that was tough on Opal. So I can just hear the joy in her voice when she realizes there's nothing holding me. I can go home. I can go home to where I wanted to be all this time. So that's really, really a sweet part of the book for me, just hearing her sense of place and how she's got to that point in her life where she realizes that she's going to be able to go back. But I'm sure she's realizing a lot of things, just looking back over her life and thinking about things, as we all do as we get older. It's what we all do. So I hope you enjoyed this part of the book. We've got maybe about 2 more readings, maybe 3, but I think it's just 2, about 2 more readings, and we'll be done with Opal. So I hope you'll leave a comment and tell me what jumped out at you in this part that we read today, and I hope you'll drop back by next week so we can find out what happens to Opal next.